Hello, Dr. Lay. How are you today? I'm so glad to see you again. Thank you for joining me on this Zoom meeting. And how is everything?
Yeah, I'm in Vancouver, BC. Things are good. Thank you very much.
Okay. So, yes, I was just mentioning to you that I tracked down a copy of your dissertation, which was published by the American geographers back in 1974. So I have a vintage copy of that. And I was just asking you briefly, and I think it's good that maybe if I do post this, that viewers could hear how do you so the dissertation is the Black Inner City as Frontier Outpost, and can you just describe to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Well, it is a study of a neighborhood in North Philadelphia in I think around 1970, and it's really I lived there for 8 months and had continuing contacts there for some years around that. Um, it was a study of how people manage to live and get by in highly stressful environments. And there were many stresses in that neighborhood, one of which was a quite active gang scene, which of course flared up from time to time. And that's how I actually got into an interesting in graffiti was by noticing the spatial pattern of gang graffiti around the neighborhood.
Yes.
And then with my colleague Roman, who is a co-author of the piece that you're interested in, we that led us then to think about what we called the graffiti kings, and also graffiti at black-white boundaries in another neighborhood in Philadelphia, territorial graffiti. So it was this project, which was broader than simply looking at graffiti. I think there's maybe just one or two figures in the dissertation on that. But it was fascinating. I lived there. I worked with a neighborhood organization there. I worked with a group of young people at a neighborhood church. So you know,
Do you remember the name of the neighborhood?
well, that has forever been a secret.
It was
Because
bordering Fairmont, right? That's where Dr.
no, it's
Sagruski.
not.
Oh,
It's not
okay.
bordering Fairmont. Um, it's I call it Monroe in the book, and the reason the place is the name is disguised is because I didn't want any individuals to be
Oh,
identified.
yes. Okay. Okay. So in a general scope of things, would you say West Philadelphia, North Philadelphia?
Oh, North Philadelphia,
Okay.
but that's a big area.
Yes, yes. Well, I tell you, the study that we are talking about, that the two of you combined it on, that was urban graffiti as territorial markers. And the Annals of the Association of American Geographers printed that in volume 64, number 4, December 1974. And that was from pages 491 to 505. And I found it very interesting. And I just want to say, I love that you call them the graffiti kings. And I think because of how early it was that you were reporting on this, it's fascinating. And I my thing, as when you asked me what is the point of my research, and I told you I was focused more on origin points
Mm.
for not necessarily the gang graffiti, but I do have interest in that as well. But for what you referred to as the lone graffitiist and the graffiti kings. So let me ask you this, because I think people will have interest in this, and I will not know unless I ask you, but I think I know the answer. So the the reason for your study was not exactly to find out the origin points. You reported on New York and you also reported on Philadelphia, but you weren't focused on the origin points of where it started. Am I correct?
That is correct. uh, of course, graffiti itself is as old as human civilization.
Yes.
And I did come across a 19th century reference to graffiti. I think it was the 1840s. It's in the article anyway. Um, in Philadelphia.
Oh, yes. Yes, I know
The
that
comment
article.
that was made there is it was in the paper. I don't know if it was the Inquirer. I don't know if the Inquirer existed then, but there was a comment made that said, "We are sorry to state that this graffiti is distinctively written by Anglo-Saxon boys."
Right. I think, and there's another one too from early in 1847 in Philadelphia where it talks about the Irish gangs in South
Yes,
Philadelphia and how they used everything from house paint to charcoal to mark their territories. And
yes.
I don't think that tradition stopped all the way up until the point that you come across it in the 1970s. And
I suspect you're quite correct there.
right, just the actual what your study is. Urban graffiti is territorial markers. And now you did share with me on another Zoom, but I just want to let the folks know again. So you came over from Wales to pursue your education in America, and what university was that?
I was at Penn State at Central Pennsylvania.
Okay, yes. And now, so also your associate, and I want to make sure I'm getting this name correct, Dr. Cybruski?
Yeah, Zabriskie. Yeah,
Zabruski. Okay. He was located in Philadelphia as well, doing a similar project, his dissertation, and he was in Fairmont, which was a predominantly white neighborhood. And he was studying the third type of graffiti, which you pointed out to me last time, which was kind of racially oriented. Uh, Definitely not something I appreciate, but it's out there and it has to be reported on. And I think I've read his dissertation as well. The both of you did fine jobs with it. And I was just asking you right before we got on how you thought your dissertation might hold up in today's world, 2025.
yeah. Well, what I think, of course, I haven't read it for some time now, but what I would think is that the actual recording, observation, interpretation of everyday life in North Philadelphia in 1970 holds up quite well. But there's some rather how can I put it, Baroque scaffolding around the thesis,
Okay.
a kind of conceptual framework, which I think has aged substantially. So I think the content has aged well, but kind of just have a little snigger and move on if the conceptual framework sort of gets in the way.
Right. And as I did mention, I found that on the internet. I did purchase a copy. So one thing I really wanted to know, you have just now answered the question that you were not involved in trying to track the origin points, but you did also report on New York City. And the reason why this study crosses my path is because over the years, between Philadelphia and New York City, which both have starting points with the graffiti kings, in the 1960s, New York, a little bit before Philadelphia, a lot of people who wanted to do pieces and books and documentaries on the two cities were looking for origin points. And throughout the years, it's kind of put it into a competitive kind of framework that sometimes I wonder where folks are getting some of what they wrote, because when I read your piece, you did not give anybody credit as far as who began or who was the graffiti capital. So I think when people read, for example, there's a book, Graffiti Kings, by a gentleman named Jack Stewart, and he cites your piece. And he also adds, though, and titles his chapter, It All Started in Philadelphia. But I can't be sure how he would ever have known that, because that's not anything that's written in your study. You know what I mean? So it starts to have these extra pieces added on, wherein it actually had about 2 to 3 extra pieces added on. They continue to cite your work, though, but those other pieces that are not in quotation marks, it's a little bit of fluff added to it. And that's why those quotation marks are very, very important when you're citing somebody's work.
That's
so
right.
what do you think about that, that some things might have been added on?
Well, your project and what you said the last few minutes is interested in origins, and that is in time. Our study was concerned with space rather than time.
Yes.
It was concerned with the geographical distribution of certain markings in public places, and the spatiality or the territoriality of that was really our key focus. So our key focus, in a nutshell, was geography, not history. It was with current distributions rather than looking at it through time.
And this is why it's also very important that I track through all of this. And believe me, these books are still coming out, because these Graffiti Kings, the ones from New York at least, ended up putting these masterpieces on the sides of the subway cars, as we talked last time. And that brought attention around the world, and they eventually made it to galleries. And some of these individuals are still selling their artwork today for thousands and thousands of dollars. So I do have to admit, as a New Yorker, when I was reading through these books and I saw the citation, and I have to read Urban Graffiti as Territorial Markers, because I thought for sure it was going to have this opinion stated of where you thought it started. And that was not the case at all. And this is why it's very important to go to the source. Would you agree?
Absolutely. You've got to do that because, yes, when you write something, you lose control of it, and other people can manage it for their own purposes. So you do have to go to the source.
Yes.